Hi everyone. Now, my name is Laura Boyd. Welcome to Maven Capital Partners podcast Invested. I'm an entertainment reporter. I've interviewed everyone from the likes of Rod Stewart to Harrison Ford, but this podcast is a little bit different because here I'm chatting to entrepreneurs and CEOs at the helm of some of the UK's fastest growing companies. Now, I don't just get stories of their business. I want to find out about how they got to where they are today, their success, their failures, and everything in between. It really is a fascinating insight into the people behind these companies. And today's episode is no different because I'm chatting to the brilliant Luke Pargeter. He is CEO of the company iAM Compliant. Now, that is a web-based company that has built a tool specifically for the education sector. And having worked in facilities management for many years, Luke wanted to simplify the way compliance should be managed. And boy, has he done that. He is an absolutely driven man, and you are going to be really inspired by this, I think. So have a listen. Luke, thank you so much for joining us on the Invested podcast. First of all, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you very much. And I've had a very interesting time reading your backstory. My goodness, you have been working since the age of 5, which just bamboozled me. But anyway, we'll come back to that. We always start this podcast by asking people how they start their day. So tell me a bit about what time you get up, how you kind of kick things off.
So I generally get up around about 7 o'clock. Well, the alarm goes off at 7 o'clock. I generally get out of bed about 20 past 7. By that time, the wife and kids are already getting ready to go to school. And on a good day, there'll be no sort of commotion in the house. And so generally, if there is commotion in the house, then generally I intervene, and then I generally take the kids to school and have it all out with them whilst in the car. Um, and and yeah, and then I come back, grab myself a coffee, sit down, and off I go.
But take me back. You said that you started working from the age of 5. Is that right?
It was essentially something that I probably just to get me out of the house, that I would go with my dad. There was no sort of rules and regulations there. My dad's an electrician,
Yeah.
so he kind of used to work for the co-op, doing all their sort of jobbing maintenance, and then he went self-employed in 1981, and basically had the ability to be able to obviously take me to work. So that's what I would do, and I like I said, there was no I had absolutely no issue at all about it. I really love spending time with him, and I really, like I said, there was no. He was very much I'm going to say a bit of a taskmaster. So I would be on the sort of hammer and bolster, because he was like chopping out walls and chopping in sockets and what have you. But you get to know all of his sort of, I suppose, his network and his friendship group, and understanding about how all the trades come together and that sort of thing. And so summer holidays I'd go with him, and sort of weekends occasionally I'd go with him as well. But all they knew was work. All my
Yeah.
parents knew was work, and I think that was what me and my sisters, all of my sisters, we've all got a good work ethic.
You're obviously a very creative person, but did you start to get a buzz when you could see the success coming in, when you could see the money coming in? Was that a thrill?
Like I said, I look back now, I love what I do. If I didn't love what I do, I wouldn't do it. I'm
Yeah.
that sort of, obviously, straight down the line, I just wouldn't do it. And so when I was looking at these other things, it was, you always sort of dream big, and you always think, so if I wanted to go and do the best secondhand furniture business, whilst I was sort of evenings and weekends with my mum, and with the nitromors out and getting all the stuff, then I'd want it to be the best. Do you know what I mean? I want to go and do the
Yeah.
best I could at the possible thing. So that was more what I think I was striving for, rather than obviously the money.
Did you go to university after school, Luke?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So I went to Manchester.
Yeah.
So again, a bit of a gap. There was a bit of a gap in terms of me. So I finished school, and again, when I was at school, I didn't. You don't know what you want to do. I suppose when you're thinking, I suppose I'm going to say entrepreneurially, if that's a word. There was no real sort of clear-cut thing that I wanted to do. Everybody in my school was going off to be international sports people, and they did. They went off and became international sports people, because it was a sports school.
Yeah.
And so there was never really a sort of a clear idea about where I was going to go. I was always interested in business, obviously, and so by the time I actually sort of got my act together, I'd had sort of 2 years or so of growing up as well. So I didn't sort of apply to university till I was 20. Then I went off to university. But I suppose at the end, what the difference being between me finishing school and me going to university is, so if you, like I said, if you go back to 96 when I left school, 96, my school the year before was the year before I left was the first year that the school had implemented a computer suite. So it had computers, but it didn't have a dedicated room with a computer suite in there.
Yeah.
And it just meant that in my upper sixth year, I could do a lot more on a computer. There was no internet, obviously. And so it just seemed a lot easier. So when I left school, and interesting story, when I left school, I basically had I fell off the stage in my A-level exam for theatre studies. Again, I didn't know what I was doing, so I did sports studies, theatre studies, and art as A-levels, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, really. I just wanted to stay at the school. And then I fell off stage, and I tore my meniscus in my knee, which is effectively, there's a cartilage basically. And what happens when you tear your cartilage? Your knee locks. And so I had this locked knee, and unfortunately, because I'd loved sport, my parents, again, like I said, they couldn't afford it, but they actually paid for me to go and get it fixed on the NHS. It would have taken months to get an appointment even then.
Yeah.
But my parents knew how much sport meant to me, because I really, really love sport and the competitive nature of sport as well. So, and I was playing a really good level of football at the time as well, at that point in time. And so they paid for me to go and get it done. So I went to get it done, and then there was a 3-month recovery period. But to my dad, that's a 3-day recovery period. But effectively, I finished school, I had my operation, I was back home. The operation was a day in, day out thing. Had my operation, came back, sort of tried to sort of hobble around the house on crutches. And then day 4 of my summer holiday, after finishing my A-levels, the covers were ripped off of me about sort of 7:15 in the morning. Come on, you're coming with me. And that was it. And I went and I got into his van. And then he was running everything either from home or the van. And then we were looking, he was looking at one of his friends who owned these big industrial units. And basically said, can you come and run this industrial unit for me? Because I don't really want to be here all the time. Just sort of be the sort of caretaker of the building, and I'll give you a small office at the front. So he took that, and then I went and sat over there. And then I said, there's so many different things you can do, because my mum was on a typewriter with carbon paper. I was just, there's so many different things you could do to make this business a little bit better than what it is in the sort of the back office. I know what it's like at the front office, obviously the front of house, to actually do the job. But have you not thought about getting a computer? The school had a computer, and it was so that's what we ended up doing. My dad sort of thought, all right, well, listen, what you've got to do. So then I sort of hobbled into town, went and bought a computer on the drip, and then brought it back, and then we had a computer, and then it just meant that my mum could do less. Mm-hmm. So it sort of got me more into the office, and that recovery period that I had was then in the office. And I suppose I had a 3-month window of trying to impress the old man, because he knew I could do the job out in the field. But actually, it's me about sort of impressing my dad to say, have you thought about doing this any differently than what it is now? Anyway, 2 years on, so he'd gone from, like I said, it was him and this band of merry men since 1981, and then 2 years on, when I decided I was going to go back to university, the business had gone up to like 11 people then, sort of 10, 11 people. So 11 people if you include me going out and about occasionally as well. So we kind of grown it, and then I sort of said to my dad, look, I really think that I just want to go to university. I don't, and he was a bit, like I said, I think he sort of felt I was leaving him a bit in the lurch a little bit, but he basically said, it's fine. So I went off to university, and I was going to, at the end of university, I was going to stay for an extra year. Fortunately, I didn't, because I came back and my wife and I got together, but I was going to stay an extra year, but he basically said, look, I need you back in the family business. Can you come back? And it's too much for me. And his health was struggling a little bit as well. So I didn't do another year that I could have done at university, and I came back, and the rest is history, really.
But we fast forward to now, Tell me how iAM compliant comes to be and how you come to be involved in this.
So iAM stands for Intelligent Asset Management. So just to, if I go back to when, like I said, if I give you the very sort of brief overview of sort of 2003 to 2007, I came back from university, went to university in 2000, came back 2003, and then we started to get more meaty contracts in the electrical contractor business. And then when I came back, because I'd made the commitment to come back, my dad actually gave me 10% of the business as well. We didn't always want to be an electrical contractor business. At this point in time, like I said, I came back 2003. We'd gone up to like around about 20 engineers, 20, and a couple of people in the staff, in the office as well. And so it was quite a meaty sort of business at that point.
Yeah, it built.
And so, but it was electrical contracting business, and you're only reliant on your worst engineer, I suppose. You're only reliant on your worst engineer out in the field, and you get a bad reputation. Obviously, it all goes down the pan. We were looking around for different things to do, and then we got a call from somebody that was running a site in Bristol. He'd left the co-op and he'd gone around to various other places. He'd gone into facilities management, and he was based at a sort of large tourism attraction in the centre of Bristol called At Bristol. And also another site called the Pavilion. So he sort of shared his time between there. So he said, look, can you come and do a fixed wire test, which is basically an electrical inspection of At Bristol? If you come and do a price for it. So we did a price for it. And then I got chatting to him. And then and he was like, oh, I knew your dad from this way back, and blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. And I said, oh, do you want to? I said, look, we're looking at different things. I said, facilities management is something we're always contacted by facilities management companies to work for them. I said, but I think there's a real alignment into what we're doing as electrical engineers and facilities management. Do you want to have a conversation? I said, do you ever feel that there might be more that you could do? And he was like, yeah, all right, we'll have a chat. So we had a chat, and basically I managed to convince him to come out of there. He was working for AMEC. So AMEC was the contractor that had the massive $1 billion plus company. They had the contracts at the Pavilions, which was basically the data center for the FTSE and at Bristol. And so he basically came out of there. And then one of the reasons why we had to what we were originally going to do was we were going to convert my dad's business into a facilities management company by rebranding it, retraining the engineers that were in there as well, because they're electrical engineers, so you could train them up in mechanical bias as well if you wanted to. I've spoken to a few people who said, oh, you just took over your dad's business. No, we didn't. We took over a business that had 3 decently sized customers.
Yeah.
So Land Security, South Gloucestershire Council, and British Gas, or Centrica. But as soon as they found out we were facilities management companies, they almost cut us off.
Right.
So it wasn't really. It was almost we'd almost. I'm going to say we bought a dead duck. We had 3 years worth of accounts, which meant that we could go and tender for other works.
Yeah.
So we drew a line in the sand on January the 1st, on January the 1st, 2007, and then we did of new business in that year. We did £1.8 million in our first year, and thought, right, we've got a business here.
Yeah. My goodness.
Say sort of fortune favors the brave, I'm going to say, but I'll say fortune favors the brave, but it's just luck that the 2008 crisis hit.
Yeah.
And that was really quite lucky for us. It sounds weird, but it was, because all of a sudden the world stopped building new buildings and they started managing them properly. So as a facilities management company, it was absolutely ideal.
Yeah.
And we got in with some large real estate companies, some large property agents, notably a big one that basically eventually got sold called King Sturge. They got bought out by Jones Lang LaSalle, but we got in with King Sturge, and it was we were really, really, really dominating the southwest in terms of, because they had a load of buildings in the southwest. They were very sort of regionally based, and we used to manage pretty much most of their buildings. We just reputation all the time. If there was something we needed to be doing, even if I was in the office to go and do things. So I went over, for example, me and 2 others went over to Cardiff in a building they had in Cardiff that we went to go. We had to go and reinstall this large distribution board for them, like a commercial distribution board unit. So everybody would be all hands on deck, and that's why we got to that point where we did so well in the first year. Then it just went on from there. I've always been interested in tech, but But I never thought I'd build my own app. But we built this sort of app in FileMaker to basically allow schools to report faults to us, to monitor how compliant they were because of the job that we were doing.
Yeah.
Because there was a big requirement for them to actually buy into what we were doing, and knowing what we were doing was correct. So we had to give some sort of reporting mechanism on there. So we did that, and they absolutely loved it. But after a year, schools just did not understand facilities management at all. They didn't understand outsourcing. They thought everybody think they're having them over. But they don't understand the principle or didn't understand the principle of outsourcing, but they loved the app. So they said, is there any chance we can keep the app? I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, fine. If you buy the iPad off of us, you can keep the app. So they did that. And then I sort of went back, and I always knew that tech was where and the Internet of Things and that kind of stuff was starting to become a thing as well. I always knew that was where FM was going, facilities management was going. So I went back to business partner and said, I think this is the direction of travel we're going in. I was the strategic one. He was the sort of the guy on the ground.
Yeah, the drive.
And so he was just completely against it, absolutely completely against it. Just and there was a couple of other things. So I just said, all right, well, we're going to sell the business then, because I do believe in this. My wife was having a baby, or she wanted to have a baby. So Rubes came along, my daughter came along as well. So it was like, my son was born in 2007 when we launched the business, and I didn't really spend enough time as what I wanted to with him anyway. Daughter was coming along, that was affecting my mind. He wanted to bring in his son eventually to take over his sort of side of the business, and I was like, no. So all these different things. So I just said, look, let's just sell the business.
Yeah.
So we did that, and basically that gave me basically a window of like 2 years to follow my dream, I suppose. In the background, to think that I could actually go and build something which I think I know the target audience in schools. I know they liked what we did there. Whether they were ready for it at that point in time was another thing. But essentially, iAM was born off the back of me having that sort of, I'm going to say failure. I'm going to call it failure with schools.
Yeah.
In the sense that they didn't really know what full facilities management was. That was a failure that we lost them, because we never lost contracts. Customer service has always been absolutely tip top. And the quality of engineers we used to have were brilliant. Training was a massive thing. Used to train them all the time, and yeah. So we just ended up having we went our sort of separate ways, and here we are today with iAM. I set up iAM and went live with it in 2016.
I want to know, with iAM, you took on external funding. As someone who's kind of, I feel, done it very much themselves, it's very much been kind of family and things like that. How was that, taking on external funding for the company?
It was difficult to begin with, but so I funded it. I funded everything. When you run a tech business, you appreciate that there is going to be a lot of it will drain a lot of cash resources. So in my eyes, the journey to actually have an investor almost became inevitable, really, I'm going to say, because I funded it to a point where I got it off the ground, and I just needed that extra layer of not only money but also experience from somebody. So we actually had an angel investor first, and they kind of joined, and the experience was absolutely invaluable. That was number one. And then obviously Maven joined, and that really supercharged where we were at. It meant that we could do so much more. We knew where the market was placed. I wouldn't ever say go and build something without really, I mean, I don't suppose an investor would ever go and invest into something that didn't have product market fit anyway, but you really need to know your market and know where you're going to spend the money to get an investor on board. And I think that I would, certainly in tech, I would be a huge advocate that it is not, you can't just do it on your own. There are other people that need to be involved, sensible people as well, that can, because tech can run away with you very, very easily. And I suppose in other businesses you can as well. I don't know if an investor would have worked at my old FM company. The management team were too strong to allow somebody else to come in that weren't giving some kind of shareholder value.
Yeah.
So I think, and you, like I said, you don't really, you can't really grow a tech business these days, I don't think, without having that extra firepower, I suppose, in the bank to be able to afford to go and do these weird and wonderful things that you've got plans for that won't ever happen unless you've actually got that level of funding in place as well. I mean, some businesses really sort of strike gold, don't they? And they do really, really well on day one, and they get sign-ups all over the place. But then there's another story, isn't it? It's a different story. You want to go from there. You want to go from there. And then that will need extra funding as well. And then it might have just been luck, etc. So I think an investor is not just somebody that brings money; it's somebody that brings a wealth of information and a network as well. So that's the real value that we've got from it.
And as someone who's clearly, you've always got your finger on the pulse, you're always looking ahead. Are you happy with where iAM compliant is just now, or what's the goal? Where do you want to take it?
Really happy where it is at the moment. We've got, I suppose, there's been an element of if I'd have looked back to where we were before pre-investment, I suppose, versus where we are now, and the team of people that it's enabled us to build with obviously the increased revenue that we've got from all the work that we're doing, and obviously the comfort blanket of knowing that we can afford to do these things now, early stage, without having to sort of go out. And there's a really pleased with where we are now. There is so much more that we can do. We have got a real passion for schools in our business, and there is so much more that we can do for schools, because schools are in a big they're in this sort of, I mean, there's a reason why school buildings is third on the Department of Education's risk register, and it has been for the last 2 years. It's because they're rapidly declining and they just need help. Mm-hmm. And so me personally and the business, I would want to, in the future, no matter what happens, I want to stay in that sector. Yeah. I think I really love working with anybody in schools. They're really easy to get on with. They love what we do. They appreciate every single thing that we do for them. And I think that the whole kind of purposeful led side of the business, that actually we know that we're doing something, we're giving back to a community of people that really need our help, is really something to take away. And I do feel a great value in it. And like I said, knowing that my mum's a teacher, my sister's a teacher, I know that they obviously do appreciate the help as well.
Can you enjoy a work-life balance now, or are you still that kind of same workaholic that you've been since you were young and that you saw your dad do? Have you got a better work-life balance, do you think?
So when you, again, it's that same old cliche that when you enjoy what you do, it's not work, is it? It's not work. Mm-hmm. So my kids, I've built everything around me now. So that I work from home. There's 2 offices. I work from home though. And my kids see me every day, whether I take them to school, whether I pick them up, whether I go and watch them play matches in the afternoon. That's what I would say balance. But I think nothing of finishing at 10, 11 o'clock at night once they've gone to bed, etc., and done these different things. So there's no, just love it. There's no, the work-life balance is growing up in a family where everything was about work. And I think that I look back now and I think that I've got a great foundation from my parents. And I think that going forward, my parents sort of instilled this thing around loving what you do, I suppose, not liking what you do, but loving what you do. And I do love what I do. And whilst that's still the case, I don't think it's work. So it's just a life balance to me. So it's all good.
I think loving what you do is so key, and it's so nice to hear this story and hear how passionate you are, and long may it continue. Thank you so much, Luke. It's been so interesting. Thank you.
Thank you very much as well. I really appreciate it.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Well, wasn't it brilliant to hear from Luke? What an inspirational man. But we've got more of that. So before you go, remember to like and subscribe to the podcast. And if you want to find out more about people like Luke, then go to mavencp.com to see what else we have on offer.